Hi guys, Dr. Watson here. In today's video, I'm going to talk about summons in Final Fantasy. The summon monster in Final Fantasy is an ability that certain characters or all characters can use to summon a mighty beast that will do tons of damage, heal the party, or give some sort of status effect like Reflect. The summons have been around in the game since Final Fantasy III and are at this point a mainstay of the series, and a lot of fans look forward to seeing them in various different iterations in new games. So for this video, I will be going back and looking through how summons have evolved in each of the different games and highlighting any key changes to the formula.
Okay, let's start at the beginning with Final Fantasy III. Summons were first introduced in Final Fantasy III, and for the first 3 games at least, the summon could only be used by a certain job or character, and started introducing characters that would be mainstays throughout the franchise. Summons such as Ifrit, Shiva, Bahamut, and Odin. For 3 and 5 in particular, it was set to the job summoner, and for Final Fantasy IV, it was set to the character Rydia. For Final Fantasy VI, there was a few changes made. Final Fantasy VI included a Magicite system. All the characters could equip Magicite and were able to summon the Esper that was related to the Magicite. So if you found the Ifrit Magicite, you could summon it. The Magicite also allowed the characters to learn specific magics. So Shiva's Magicite would allow the character to learn various different ice magics. The change of the name to Esper rather than Summon is a big one, and then also the Espers as well also had a big part of the story. One of the main character protagonists, Terra, was half Esper, so the Espers had a great big part in the story. Final Fantasy VII went back to calling the creatures summons and had them as materia that anyone can use and master. The summons in Final Fantasy VII are obviously a lot more iconic than most of the other games, because Final Fantasy VII is obviously the most popular. And then, as I said, everyone can use the summon materia, everyone can learn the summons. It also had a master summon materia, which included all the summons in the game, so once you mastered each of the various different materias, you could mold them all together to learn a master summon materia, which you could equip that allowed you to use every single summon, which was quite cool. Final Fantasy VIII changed summons again and called them Guardian Forces. These were equipped to characters and allowed for magic junctioning to strengthen stats, and also each of the different Guardian Forces, or GFs, had its own ability screen and level up to allow them to get stronger as well. So they were a separate part, a separate level up system to the main characters, which basically made them like Pokemon. They had the sort of monster capture sort of system to them. The junction system in itself was a bit divisive with fans, because it was very easy to make your character overpowered earlier in the game. But the Guardian Forces themselves had a lot more going on for them in 8 than the previous games. They were a lot more involved. Final Fantasy IX went back to having them only available for a specific character, but this was where we changed the names to Eidolons. Again, the Eidolons are a major part of the story, having only been selected to be used for the two characters, Garnet and Eco. The Eidolons as well were related to specific gems that allowed you to learn the Eidolons as abilities so that you could summon several of them, but again, only available for the two characters. Final Fantasy X again changed the name of the summons, this time to Aeons. Aeons were only allowed to be used by Yuna, and in this case, for Final Fantasy X, when you summon them in and they took place of your party and allowed you to use them as a playable character rather than just it comes in, does its attack, leaves. This time the Aeons came in. You could select various different things you can use. Get them to use fire, you could get them to use haste, you could attack. They had their own special moves, they had their own overdrives, which was the limit break system for Final Fantasy X, which was also always quite cool. The Aeons themselves were also customizable. You could use various items in the game to help them to learn new techniques, to build up their stats, all that sort of good stuff. Final Fantasy 11 rather, was a little bit different again. Final Fantasy 11 being an MMORPG rather than a standard JRPG, very much changed how the game was played. So in this case, they were more of an avatar system to fight alongside summoner class. So obviously a lot of different characters, a lot of different people played the game. You changed your job to summoner. You could learn the various different summons, but they were more avatars that just fought alongside you. They were smaller versions of the summons. Final Fantasy 12, we went back to calling them two different things, Espers and Scions. Espers were the ones that were controlled by the main characters, and then Scions were versions of the summons that were bosses. You could only fight them. These required mischarges to summon by the player characters, but could be summoned by anyone. The other characters were AI controlled, and the summons themselves in this game were very different from every other game. You got rid of E3, you got rid of Bahamut, all that sort of stuff. These ones were based on the Zodiac, and they required big battles to obtain the various different summons from the rest of the... It required big battles to obtain different summons. So one of the main summons was, I believe, Belial, and that allowed you to fight it, and it would be a big fight, and it had millions of HP, and it took forever. Final Fantasy 13, we went back to calling them Eidolons again. In this one, there were specific summons that related to specific characters. For example, Odin could only be used by lightning. Shiva could only be used by snow. And these were linked to Fal'Cie, which was a major story point again. Each of the different characters were marked by these Fal'Cie to become Lucy, and this was a major part of the story. Each of the different characters got a different summon, and that was all cool. Final Fantasy XIV again is an MMORPG, and in this one the summons are again called something different. They're called primals. These were heavily linked to the story again, and were summoned using crystals. The more crystals that the user used, the more powerful the summon was. The summoners could also summon lesser forms of the primals called Egi? Not sure how that's pronounced. And lastly, Final Fantasy 15. Again, we changed the name of the summons in this one to Astrals. These were like godlike beings. The idea of the story was Noctis, the main character, will go around and look for these various different summons to get them on his side to help him take back his country. And for this game, Noctis had no control over how he summoned these monsters. They would just randomly show up. You press a button, they randomly showed up, they did the thing, and they left. Which was kind of not great, but it did allow you to... They came in, they did some damage, they left. They were really cool looking. It was quite good. It was quite good.
And that was our video on summons in Final Fantasy. It was only a quick look at each of the different games and the summons that are in there. Looking forward to Final Fantasy 16 and the newer versions of the summons called Econs. That should be quite interesting. As always, if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.